Today we're going to discuss Chapter 5 in the TED Talks book, and so you need to make sure that you have read it before you watch the video so that you really know what's going on. In Chapter 5, it's talking about connection, and so the very first sentence says, knowledge can't be pushed into a brain, it has to be pulled in. What that means is that you can't force anyone to accept your message. You can't force anyone to learn something. The only thing that you can do is make it enticing enough for the listener to want to understand what you're saying or to want to learn what you're trying to teach them. So it's your job to make the information enticing, but you can't force someone in order to listen to you. It's a very, very important lesson in life. Next is the fact that in order to have an impact, there has to be a true human connection. And so one of the things you should have seen in the assignment with writing a letter was the fact that it involved being vulnerable, and it involved being honest and being open. And there is a strong connection between you and the person who has shaped you into the person that you are right now. That vulnerability, that realness, translates to the audience, and they know if you're being real or if you're not being real in terms of listening to your specific letter. The same thing happens in a speech. We need to feel a connection to the speaker, and so it's important for you to be open and to be honest. Now the problem though is that some people take that in the wrong direction, and they try to be too open too fast, and that can lead the audience to turn off and not to listen to you. So you want to walk a fine line between being open with the audience but not being too open to where you shut them off. Another key aspect of the chapter is the fact that we have to have some sort of wall up, because if we were completely vulnerable to every incoming piece of information, we would quickly fall apart. Think about how many different conversations are going on around you at all times. If you were paying attention and taking in all that information constantly, it would be impossible for you to do anything else. So it's important for us to be able to cut off our ability to listen or to pay attention to people or to things and focus in on one thing that matters the most to us. And because we have that barrier, we know that others around us have that barrier. It's important that you craft a speech, or in the case of the next assignment, a podcast that has the audience take down those barriers, and they want to take part. They want to listen. They want to respond. So you have to make that journey seem enticing. One way that you can do that is to make eye contact. You can be warm. You can show warmness by smiling or by trying to have some sort of person-to-person contact, even if it's via a podcast or through video. It's a lot harder though. In person, it's a lot easier to smile at the people in front of you. It's a lot easier to look them directly in the eye. And so that's kind of what you want to do when you're giving a speech. There are a ton of things that it talks about. One of the things that it does discuss is the fact that being vulnerable is a way to disarm the audience. Now again, you want to earn that vulnerability. You don't want to just open up right away and be completely vulnerable from the start, because then it looks like you're not being real, like you're being disingenuous. And that's the worst thing that you want to do, because then the audience will turn off. They think that you're trying to play them, that you're trying to play on their emotions, and nobody wants that to happen, okay? Another thing that is a very, very big part of this is the fact that bad humor or ineffectual humor is worse than no humor at all. And so if you're not funny, don't try to be funny. Not everyone is funny. You should know if you're funny or not by this point in your life. If you constantly feel like the things that you say causes people around you to burst out into laughter, people find what you say humorous, then you're probably funny. And if those things don't happen, then you're probably not. And it's okay, because there's all kinds of different people in the world, and not everyone has to be funny. But you don't want to take an example like the Sir Ken Robinson TED Talk that we watched and use that as a template and say, well, he was funny, so I have to be funny. That doesn't make any sense. He was funny because he's just a funny person. If you try to force it, it's going to come off as corny. It's going to come off as something that is not funny at all. It's going to be sad. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to be the person who's sad. One thing that you can use, though, is the thing that makes you the most special in the entire world, and that's the stories that have happened directly to you. Think about some of the things in life. Like there might have been a whole lot of people that go to Disney World, but only you have your memories from Disney World, your stories from Disney World. That makes that special. Or floating down the river from Longpool. There's tens of thousands of people that do that every year, but your story is what makes it special. And so you can use your stories in order to create instant generators of interest or empathy or emotion or intrigue. And so make sure that you're thinking about the stories that you want to use. So that's chapter 5 in a nutshell, and that's going to be the last chapter that's going to occur on the 9 weeks test. I think that yesterday I might have said chapter 4 was the cutoff, but chapter 5 is going to be the cutoff. So make sure that you do a little bit of review over chapters 1 through 5, the communication model, and then all of the different aspects of the history of communication that we've talked about so far. And then you'll be prepared to ace the semester test.